When I grew up, I didn't necessarily grow up around a ton of money or wealth mentors. Where I grew up from, I'm from Queens originally, and my parents are immigrants. And when they got to this country, I know, when they got to this country with their green card, they got handed a credit card. And if anyone remembers the first time you get handed a credit card, maybe some of us did it for a water bottle back in college or a t-shirt, but for some reason, it gets received as for some people as a license to do whatever you want and someone else is going to pay for it. Kind of like a sugar daddy in plastic form.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. I couldn't be more excited. It took everything for me to catch up with this woman and finally get this interview done. I'm very excited to introduce Miss Ange Matthews, and you may know her as the Happy Investor. She's actually the founder of the Happy Investor Method, and she's a first generation millionaire, self-made millionaire who went from earning 40,000 a year, which probably some of you could relate to at one point, while drowning in six-figure debt to generating multiple six figures passively through stock market and investments. So she's really passionate about empowering individuals to rewrite their money story, invest confidently, and to create financial independence and freedom on their own terms. And y'all who know me know anything on your own terms I resonate with. So welcome, Ange. I'm so happy to finally have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I am so happy to finally be here, and I trust that now is the time.
Yes, always divine timing. And I find it interesting that we connected so long ago and we've been circling each other's paths, but this will probably be the first time that we really get to drop in, you know? And so this excites me. And I think where I'd like to start is you do speak a lot about the mindset of money, some of the blocks of money, specifically for women and for women of color, or just, you know, uh, different cultures in general, right? Because I talk a lot about scarcity to abundance and the different mindset and things that kind of we are inherit on some level, right? And so tell me a little bit about potentially some of the blocks, stories, or inherited money stories that you had growing up.
Well, it's really interesting. I know for me, one of the reasons why I created the Happy Investor Method was because I thought everyone had it all figured out, and I was the only one who didn't. And it wasn't until I started talking about more about my journey that I realized that most people actually don't have it all figured out at all. And a lot of people don't even step to the plate of saying, I'm going to try this because they have so many emotions around it, whether that is overwhelm, lack of confidence. It's a topic that just makes them feel maybe not so smart. And there's so many other areas in their life where they do feel smart and powerful. So I knew right off the bat that naming the company Happy first for the Happy Investor Method, that we will initially just like jump off the bat and say, we're going to be happy, y'all. We're going to be happy, wealthy people. That is the whole point of it. I don't care where you came from. I don't care what you do. This is the goal. And I love that because, when I grew up, I didn't necessarily grow up around a ton of money or wealth mentors. Where I grew up from, I'm from Queens originally, and my parents are immigrants. And when they got to this country, I know, when they got to this country with their green card, they got handed a credit card. And if anyone remembers the first time you get handed a credit card, maybe some of us did it for a water bottle back in college or a t-shirt, but for some reason, it gets received as for some people as a license to do whatever you want and someone else is going to pay for it. Kind of like a sugar daddy in plastic form, which I realize now saying that could have gone so many different ways, but that's kind of what it was for me growing up. And sad to say, when I got to college, I did the same thing because that's what I knew. And so I knew that, hey, having credit cards give you opportunities. I traveled and I did all this stuff with it. And I have a very different perspective on debt than most people because I didn't necessarily grow up with a lot of wealth or access to wealth. I was just so thankful that someone was willing to give me money to use it. And so All that to say, growing up, I definitely had a lot of conversations around the lack of money, around not being worthy of having money, around there never being enough, scarcity. And I also had this little bit of delusion where I thought, well, this might be it now, but this is totally not going to be my life forever, right, God? And I think that's when things started changing.
I love it. I love it because I always say that you have to have a bit of delusion to be an entrepreneur at all. Maybe a lot, a lot of delusion, right? You've really got to have that belief. And so, what I love about your story and what I can identify with is that I've interviewed quite a few people who immigrated to the US or came from immigrant families. And when you talk about that sort of a journey, there's always going to be a level of scarcity that comes with it. And what fascinates me most is how you all overcome it, right? What you notice when you see people who have immigrated to the US, they come here, they typically do become entrepreneurs, they typically do go on to be very successful despite that very hard, grueling upbringing. And so I think what I would love to ask you is, based on what you saw, your life could have gone a totally different way. So what were some of the very specific beliefs or stories that you had, and how did you start to unlearn them?
Well, one belief that I think really that I came into was that it's too expensive.
Mm,
I think a lot of times I had to ask for something growing up, and my mom would immediately just say, it's too expensive. And it's crazy because the answer was the same whether we were in Macy's or the dollar store. Like it was always, it's too expensive. And so when I started handling my own money and I started working very young, I think my first job was around 13 years old and I worked at a state fair. And so I was actually a carny, which is crazy. But
a
I did
who?
that as they call it carnival folk carnies.
Oh, a carny. Okay, okay, okay.
I was
Gotcha.
a carny. And so, but to me, everything informs who you are and what you're going to be. And
Mm,
so a lot of those things, it's too expensive, was a really big one. And what I realized was sometimes I really didn't even want to spend on things that made me happy. So it
mm,
was a really interesting duality. There's this overspending with the credit cards, but our credit cards actually helped us survive. Um, and catch up on things. But then at the same time, there was because we always have this looming pay off this debt, and I don't know if anyone resonates with that, it really prevented us from actually living in this freeway and this like
mhm.
I get to breathe, I get to exist, I get to enjoy life. And so to overcome that, I would actually watch shows like The French Prince of Bel-Air, and I would wonder
Ah,
like, why can't it be me though? Like, why can't that be me? I am a person of color. I'm a black person, and they have this really nice house, and they have a butler. I still haven't made it to the butler part yet, transparently. They have a butler. Like, why can't that be me? And I think that started one of the best principles that I still use to this day is that if it can happen to them, it can happen to me.
yes.
Use it with my students too, and all of my clients is that if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. There's nothing that separates us. And I think having that as a foundational belief to counteract all the things that I saw, it really did help me a lot.
And when did you start to actually put that new belief in motion? Like, when did things start to change for you? Was it once you became an adult, you moved out, you were on your own? Were there some blunders in between there? Because there's this gap between, leaving your parents' house and being like, I'm not going to repeat their patterns. I'm going to do better, right? Like, we all have that narrative. But then we have to go bump our head a few times. So tell me about the bumps in the head along that journey until you started to like figure it out and find your footing.
Absolutely. So I think there was always something in me who saw that there was another way. And I think for a lot of kids, it happens for all of us, right? If you're a parent, you see it in your little kids early on when they say the darndest things. I think the darndest things are probably the realest things, and us adults
True.
can't understand it. So
Yeah.
I used to say things like, my mom would say, why don't you, I say, Mom, can we go and get this gift? Or can we go get this new toy? And she'd say, well, money doesn't grow on trees,
Mm,
right? A lot of us have heard this. And I'm super intentional about language
yeah.
because it really does shape your life, your world. And we won't get into what manifesting means for language, but if you want to change something, change your words. Quickest way to do it. And
True.
so I said, well, actually, Mom, it is grown on cheese though, because it's made out of paper.
And she backhanded you.
Oh, you already know, right? It
Oh,
wasn't a backhand, but it was definitely this conversation's over. And I
yeah.
know that I did not see her in the moment turn around and snicker or be like, oh my gosh, where did this child come from? But I can only imagine her facial expression when I said that,
Yes.
like, touche, darling, touche. And so I knew that I always had that spark inside of me to see things a little different. Now,
Mm,
did it always play out where this became this mantra and all of that? No. It in my 20s, I was a young mess up. I had a coin for it and everything. And I was really forgiving of myself to experience life. I grew up very sheltered.
mm,
And when I came out, I wanted to live my best life. I grew up extremely sheltered. My parents told me to just educate, get degrees, do all those things so that I can have a better quality of life.
mm.
And for the most part, I did some of it, and I also didn't do a lot because I was always rebellious. And so by the time I got to college, I was extra rebellious because I didn't have that strict guardrails.
Right.
And it wasn't until it was probably around '07, '08
Mm,
where I didn't have a great job. I was out of college. I didn't take the Goldman offer. I didn't take the Bloomberg offer. I thought more was better was coming. And I mean, honestly, it's really the folly of youth. But because it was like, with what? What experience, friend? Like, what else is coming? Just
yeah,
take
that
your
part.
win and keep building. I
Yes.
didn't learn that lesson. And it wasn't until I had a really bad job. And
Mm.
I was in a very toxic work environment. And I was working about 60 hours a week. And I asked them for a raise. And this is when I was making $40,000 a year in New York City. This is not
Yeah, which is
40,000
nothing.
in
Yeah.
Alabama, just to be
Yes.
clear. This is 40 in one of the most hard to live places ever
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
And I asked for a raise because I was literally cutting contracts for people making twice as much as I was.
Mm,
And I'd go back to my managers and I'd say, this person wants, triple what I make. I wouldn't say it that way, but they wanted triple. And they advocated and they got it. So when I went to my managers and said, this is what I would like, and I advocated for myself, they said no.
mm.
And that honestly taught me two things. One is I will never give someone the permission to control my income.
Yeah.
And two is I do not want to always be in this conversation every day of my life.
Mm.
And that was a real wake up moment. And of course, there was a lot of things happening at that point as well. I was having anxiety attacks. I had my first
Oh.
bout of like mental health crisis
Mm.
and all of that. And so it was really a clear marker of this really can't be the rest of my life.
And how old were you during that time?
I was about 25.
Okay, so you were still quite young. And the reason I asked that is because you said a few things. For one, you said you grew up very sheltered. And so, for clarity, does shelter also mean so there were financial challenges, even though you were sheltered?
And I love that you're asking this question. No one's asked me this before in terms
Because
of
when
what
I
I
think sheltered, I think kind of along the princess line of thinking.
ah,
So
got
I want
it.
to clarify. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And so for me, sheltered, and it's funny because some people shelter their kids and they might have money problems and they won't tell them what the money problems are.
Right.
I
Yes.
was not that type of sheltered. They were
Okay.
so clear. We broke. We broke.
Okay.
The light bill gonna come off if we don't pay it.
Yeah.
We have to pay the rent, and
Uh,
we don't know where the money's gonna happen. There were
mm,
no cell phones at the time, so there was no leaving the room to
yeah.
have a conversation. The phone was connected to a cord, so when the
Right.
people called to ask for their money, I was very much there.
Hmm.
And so it was that context. What I mean by sheltered was I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Queens. And if you're anything familiar with New York City and Queens around that time, there was gangs, there was a
Yeah.
crack epidemic. It was really dangerous to be outside.
Mm,
And my parents, just coming to this country, what they didn't know what they didn't know. They
mm,
didn't know that maybe you shouldn't go straight to a high crime state or city and go to a borough. They didn't know anything. And so their way of protecting us was literally, I'm not saying that they kept us trapped inside, but it was go to school and come home. I
yeah.
could not have any friends that were Americans. I
Oh,
could not
wow.
have, it was really strict in that way. I
Uh-huh.
couldn't have friends who didn't have grades who were also in their 90s. All of my other friends had to have come from immigrant backgrounds because there was a certain way that they were, I don't want to say breeding me, but they were bringing me up and they
Hmm.
knew that if I was around other people who didn't have the same values, the
Yes.
odds of success would be far less and it wasn't worth it. And so that's what I meant
Woo.
by sheltered. I
Yes.
mean, I like literally had to play in my yard all
Yeah.
the time. I would watch from my window at other kids playing
Yeah.
and want to play outside, and it would not be possible because
So
my parents were
that
like, no, you're going to end up being in a gang.
that had to have created this hunger within you to like go out there and see what else existed. And so when you say you were rebellious, some of the most rebellious people end up being the most successful people because of the curiosity, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm tying that in. The other beautiful gem I think that's here is I'm sure you didn't appreciate at the time, but that radical honesty that your parents modeled for you. A lot of us didn't have that, right? So they just kind of play like everything's fine. And then you're like, but why? You know, you start to develop your intelligence and you're like, wait, this shit ain't adding up.
Hmm.
And so the reason I bring that forth is because you witnessing and experiencing that radical honesty also in and tell me if I'm wrong, most people would not go advocate for themselves at 24 years old in their career, right? In their work environment, or many people I'll say. And you did. So where did you find the gumption, the courage, obviously you had seen a version of strength, right? And authenticity in communication. But I would love to hear in your words, like who did you think you were? Like, how'd you find the audacity at 24 years old to walk in and be like, yo, I want to raise?
That's a really interesting question because it's kind of funny up until this moment. I can see now in hindsight, yeah, that would be like a real big, bold, audacious,
Yes.
like who told you you can do that? And
Right. How
that's one of
dare
the
you
reasons
think?
why I started my company because of someone, like a really older white guy in finance asking me, like, who do you think you are to teach this? And so, but then I was so Ange. I was so like, oh, I'm Ange Matthews. Like, who am I not to teach this? You see anybody else here that look like me? That's why I need to teach it. I
Yes.
was not that Ange at 24. At 24, I was in such a broken place
Mm,
that I rather be broke, insane than kind of making it
mm.
and hating who I am looking in the mirror. And
Woo!
for me,
Preach.
I don't know why I got that lesson at 24, but it really,
Yes.
this was in an era when I was the only person of color, kind of maybe one of three, the only woman, black woman who was supposed to represent something. And I'm one of those people, especially being from New York, I'm extremely loyal,
Yeah.
right? It's like if I got you, no matter what. Like if we're people forever. Even if we don't talk a long time, you
Yeah.
can call me, I'm there.
Mm,
And for somehow, I think at that age, I thought that was something that was a reciprocated relationship amongst
mm.
relationships. I didn't realize that different people have different means about that or understanding of relationships. And so when I went to them, it was like, wait, I'm here busting my butt for you. And I thought they were going to be like, sure, Ange, you're
Right.
doing so much work here. You're working 60 hours. When I calculated it, I was like, I'm getting paid under minimum wage. I come
Right.
here on the weekend sometimes. You guys got me on the website. I did not expect
I'm the
asking for
poster child.
Yes, I didn't expect asking for an additional $10,000 when I'm literally writing contracts for people for 120. I see how much you're getting paid because I'm also looking on the project management side, like we're getting millions of dollars. I actually didn't think it was a big, bold, audacious move to ask for 10,000. I'm thinking, oh, you just must have forgot that when you were paying everyone, you forgot me. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Right. Well, I
So I
think
was so
also growing up in New York helps because I grew up in New York City. And so being that we were from an area that was so diverse, right? Such a melting pot. I know I didn't really understand or acknowledge the racial differences and all of that until I moved to Las Vegas, where, then it's like, well, you're this and you're that, like there was that separation. But I feel like growing up in New York City, here's my Puerto Rican friend, my white friend, and I'm black, and here's my African friend and my Indian friend, and it was no big deal. Like we didn't really acknowledge those labels. So I can see how, and probably is true for me, never thought about it until this moment, that we have a certain level of self value and audacity that maybe people who were raised in different environments wouldn't have had. And I think also you have value from coming from a family that was so culturally grounded in their values and their traditions as well. So it actually is making sense. Now that we're talking through it, I'm like, okay, yeah, like why not me? Just what you just said. And this is exactly like what I talk about with the anatomy of abundance framework is really being grounded in who you are, right? And that sacred self-care piece of advocating for yourself, self authority, really standing in your power. And like you said, creating life and your career on your terms and your wealth. So, yeah, I love this. I love it. It's so interesting to dive into people's like origin stories. And so when did things start to turn for you then? You asked for the raise, they said no. You're like, okay, I'll be damned if this ever happens to me again. And so take us on that path of how you ended up stepping into your own business or investing. What was the sequence of that?
Even though I stayed in the job for maybe a few more months, I went online and I searched how do you become rich?
Love it.
And really and truly, I tell that story a lot. I go on a lot of interviews and people are like, you really did that. And I had no one to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays it will probably be ChatGPT or some
Right.
AI software, but I was really that green and I was like, I just really need to know. I was that hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And so it said I can do one of two things. And this was after many, many searches. Because, like once you start going down the Google, you get to
Yeah.
like the questions page
Yeah.
because you have to refine the question. It's all about the question, right?
Exactly.
It's all about the prompt. And for me, it was like, no, to be clear, I I want I'm self-made. I do not have, and of course, I'm not self-made in the sense that my ancestors didn't work a lot and my parents didn't work a lot,
Hmm.
but I am not a trust fund baby. I do not have someone to give me a loan of a couple $1,000s to put in seed money. There is none of that here, Google. And so I need you to understand that I am starting from scratch. If not, I am starting from debt. And I do not want to ask you this question every single day of my life. So you better come with a solution that is going to pay forever.
I love it.
And that's what eventually it came. It said most self-made millionaires who become self-made and remain millionaires, because most people who become self-made millionaires end up losing a lot of their wealth within 0 to 3 years.
Hmm.
And a lot of us know this for many different reasons. There's a spiritual reason where they just energetically can't hold what they have. And then there's like this actual knowledge lacking reason of what to do to make it stay around.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to be those people. I was really
Right.
clear. So it said either you're going to start a business, therefore you're making money on your own terms, and you're going to invest. It wasn't like a or situation, it was a and situation. So you're going
Okay.
to get really great at making money, and whatever you make, you're going to invest it so that the money makes money.
Hmm.
And I would love to say in this wonderful, beautiful narrative of fairy tale and investing that I did that at the tender age of 26 and there was no going forward, and that's it. No, X, wrong. I was actually investing for 10 years before I figured this joint out.
Right.
Wandering
Hmm.
in the desert for 10 years, inconsistent.
Hmm.
I decided to do my business. I cashed out investments to do a baking company with my mother. I did a jewelry company. I did a social media agency, even though I hate social media, like to my core. I don't enjoy it, right? All of these things that I sacrificed. And it wasn't until my dad got sick that I remembered I had investments.
Wow. So you had it on automated essentially, right? You had a system in place, it sounds like, for your investing, set it and forget it type thing. So
Not,
then how
not
did
then.
you just realize you had investments? Were they ones that you started previously and forgot about and
They were
just
ones
grew?
that I started previously and
Okay.
forgot
So the
about.
compound interest kicked in
The
and it kept
compound.
growing.
Yes,
I
it
love
kept
it.
going. And so a lot of people have all these preconceived notions of what it takes to be a passive millionaire and how to grow your assets. And they get all up in their head, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And I'm like, hey, I'll be honest with you, my first $100,000
Hmm.
did not come. It came from doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
And I took that as if I could do everything wrong and still have this money,
Mm.
what if I did most of it right?
Hmm.
Like it can really change my life. And so I wasn't consistent. I used some of the money to fund my businesses. The second I became an entrepreneur, I totally stopped investing because I was investing in my business.
Right.
That
Because that's
goes
what we're taught.
because that's what we're taught, not
Yeah.
knowing that most businesses fail. And like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a good chance that the business we're working on might fail. We won't because we'll start another one that works eventually,
Exactly.
but still. And so all that to say, for me, when I had consistent income, I invested consistently.
Hmm.
I budgeted instead of going around the world and do trips. Like I was one of those folks that used to brag. I went to, 40 different countries. And it's funny, you did all that and you still had all this debt,
Yeah.
right? But I still did it.
Hmm.
And cut down the traveling. I paid my minimum on my debt because I focused on getting really great at investing. And I said, when I get really great at investing, I'm going to pay off this debt, which I eventually did, but it wasn't through saving and just paying off debt. So that's what happened. And then once I started my entrepreneurial dreams, got married, bought a house, all that stuff, I'd take out of this account.
Wow, I love it. And what I love about it is the realness, the rawness of it, because I mean, we've all been on our wealth journeys. I didn't come from money. I ended up, didn't want to get married or any of that, but I got married, had my children, four children with this man that I fell in love with. And he was in the financial business. He did have that financial education and foundation and came from a family with two parents who owned homes and stuff. So, like, I didn't have any of that background. So, I didn't go into it with a lot of expectations. And I think one of the biggest gifts that I received from that relationship, that marriage, is the intentional commitment to making sure that I was financially educated, right? And so when my husband passed in 2009, I actually inherited his financial business. So what previously I would be like, this is my lane, that's yours, you handle the money, like most women, I really don't want to have much to do with it because we as women, we have that kind of investment intimidation, or we feel like it's hard or that we're going to screw it up. And I was kind of put in a position where I had to jump in and get my hands dirty. And I didn't always do it well because there's a big difference between knowing concepts in education and actually implementing it. So, what I love about your story is that you're sharing with us that raw, vulnerable conversation of like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I stepped in, I started to learn, I made mistakes. And after 10 years, right? Most people quit after one or two. So what would you attribute that grit, that tenacity, like what kept you going? Because there had to been some narratives that were like, you really suck at this. Maybe you should rethink this strategy.
There, well, half the time, I did take classes and I read books and I did all those things.
Yeah.
And what I realized was I went all in on figuring out what I did wrong.
Beautiful.
I just doubled down on that. And really and truly, I started seeing a lot of movement probably when I was in like 30, right around when I guess mentioned I was taking care of my dad. And I thought,
Hmm.
holy folks, this thing like is real. Like this is real money that came when we needed it the most.
Yeah.
And I was a caretaker at the age of 29. And so that woke me up to I had no idea I'd be in this position at 29. Let me prepare 39-year-old Ange
I love that.
so that we're equipped to handle anything that comes our way.
Hmm.
And that's when I started getting more intentional. Like, it doesn't matter how much I make, I have to invest something. I have to take care of future Ange. Ain't nobody here to take care of me. When I was in the hardest part of my life, people had well wishes. But the reality is, I needed to like pay for things. And I needed to even pay to relax, to get a
Yeah.
massage. I needed to pay for the maintenance to go and endure through one of the most trying parts of my life. And so I'm always thinking of, I cannot rely on other people to take care of me, which I think is very much to my heritage. Like I come from a matriarch, and even though I have a husband and I had a dad and all that stuff, I come from a matriarch where women up until the very late 70s had no say over their own money. And even in my country, where we're from in the West Indies, women had to marry to keep their wealth.
Hmm.
And so I grew up with the like, no, I need to take care of myself part. And so that's what I started thinking about. And I just made sure that I analyzed all of my mistakes. And I also am just really smart at it. Like I used to work at Goldman Sachs just
Yeah.
to see what money can do. And I've always been interested in money. And as
Yeah.
a result, I was able to create a strategy where it was like, I have ADHD, where I could be inconsistent and get consistent results. I was able
Mm.
to create a strategy where I can equate it to my human ability. So companies are run by humans.
Yeah.
So clearly, and companies are traded on the stock market. So the stock market mimics human behavior. A lot of
Wow,
people don't
that's a different
realize that.
perspective I haven't heard before.
It
Interesting.
does. And so I teach a lot through, I'm a philosopher. I have a degree in
Love
philosophy.
it. Okay.
Actually a philosopher. But I'm really great at taking complex topics and breaking it down into ways that mimic nature, that really resonate with someone's like spirit and soul, right? Finding aligned and values-based investments. So once I found those investments that were kind of calling to me and I realized how to evaluate them, it changed the game for me.
So when's the book coming out? Because I want to read it.
Girl. So in 2026, a book is out. If you're reading this in
Okay,
2026,
good.
like, please DM me. I'm at
Yes.
Happy Investor Method. Be like, Ange, where's the book?
Yes.
You better get
This
it
will release in 2026. So yes.
2026. Like
Uh-huh.
say it like yeah, y'all keep me honest on that. But no, seriously, I actually invested in a book coach to help me with this because when you struggle, I've wanted to write my book for years.
Yes.
And I have an outline, but what I realize it's not being birthed in the world. And when you struggle with
Uh-huh.
something, the best thing you do is get support, whether even if
Exactly.
you have to pay for that support,
Mhm.
go get your support. Like even if you have blocks around abundance, go hire,
Yeah.
right? Go hire Patrina and figure it out. It's worth
Mhm.
it to pay for the solution. So I paid for somebody to keep me accountable to that book
Course.
situation.
Well, and guide you, right? I believe in low-hanging fruit. I believe in finding the hack. I'm not a lazy person by any means, but I'm someone who loves to maximize time and get shit done. And the
Facts.
fastest route to getting shit done is to have someone alongside you that knows the path, that's walked the path, like yourself, right? I want to go build wealth with investing, then reach out to Happy Investor and let her lead the way. So, with that said, I do have another question, and that is what is one of the biggest myths around investing and wealth building, specifically for women and women of color?
I think one of the biggest myths is that I'm too late.
Mm,
So for a lot of people, a lot of my average client age is actually between the age of 45 and 65.
mm.
People love to give themselves my services for their birthdays. It's like
Aw,
funniest thing. It's
sweet.
awesome too. It's
Yeah.
like a marker, like this
Okay.
year it's gonna change.
Yes.
And they do stuff. They put themselves in a container. But I do meet a lot of people and they're just like, I really want to retire. And I look at
Mhm.
retire as being work optional. You don't
Yes.
have to retire when you're in your 60s or whatever. Like I'm work optional. I retired 2 years ago. And so now I just do this because more people need to learn
Yeah, it's your passion.
and do it. Honestly, I don't know how long I'll do it. I always tell people this, like technically, if you don't have to show up, like I'm showing up because I'm committed. But I do this on like a year by year case where every January I'm like, are we still doing this?
Yeah.
And so there are still dreams that I want to have where I feel as if I am too late to the party, and I still do it. Like I just golfed for the first time 2 weeks ago
Ah,
in my whole life, right? And it was for a tournament, which is ridiculous, but I did it. And so this is what I want to say is that for a lot of people, they think that they're too late, but you're never too late to grow. You're never too late to learn. In the future, you still wants to have things. And the last thing I'd say, like to add to that in terms of what a lot of people don't understand is that your wealth doesn't stop at stocks and your 401k.
right.
So I'm a
Diversification
producer. No,
all day long.
yeah, it doesn't stop. Like I'm a producer. I'm an investor in the Wiz. I'm an angel investor.
Ah,
Yeah, because I want my daughter to see someone
yeah,
that looks like her on stage. I own hotels. I express myself through my investments. I
love it.
create the world that I want to see through my investments.
Mm.
And so I don't want you to think that it stops at just like your retirement. It's really a beautiful way to have a complete circle relationship
Yeah,
with.
it's a total reframe on money. Money, everybody puts so much importance on money itself, and that's really why I do this podcast. Is it's we speak to high achieving women who have done all the things, created everything that society said you need to have to be quote unquote successful, but inside you don't even feel fulfilled, right? You've created a career potentially that's become a prison or a relationship, whatever it is. And so I love this reframe around money because money really is the tool to help you live your best life, right? And you've utilized it that way. What I also love about what you just shared is that I've never thought about money in this way, but it's also artistry. The way I'm listening to you to talk about it, it's artistry. And that's a whole other, like that opens up so many more possibilities. So I would say that the thing I love most about our conversation today is that it speaks to everyone. We've spoken to the analytical, we've spoken to the spiritual, we've now spoken to the artist. And a lot of times the spiritual and the artists are the ones who struggle most with money. Am I right?
Yes.
Right, because we kind of push
You like,
against it, right? We have
like, I'll
resistance.
attract it. I'll attract it.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
yeah,
I don't need much in my life. I'm
yeah,
simple. I can face it. All the things.
exactly.
No, you are anything but.
Exactly. Like just to live and breathe in the United States specifically, it's costs a lot of money. So it is a tool, it is a necessary tool. It's something that we need to really be in juicy relationship with so that we can create the lives that we want. And so your messaging is tremendous. So I think as we start to round out this episode, I do have another question, and that is when you were in it during that 10 years where you were figuring it out, how did you balance the being, right? The being, the taking care of yourself, the kind of more spiritual and embodied piece with the actual grind or the hustle? Because I'm all about anti hustle. How can we create the same result but with ease? So, how did you navigate that in the when you were in it?
I navigated it by just having moments in the
Mhm,
moment that were beautiful
mhm,
and priceless. So
mm.
it's all of this, I have this thing where I talk about sprinkles a lot in our community. And, we'll send weekly newsletters out to folks about money. And I'm just like, yeah, I just want to be clear that we have pretty fabulous lives. And this is just sprinkles on top of a sundae. We're chasing sprinkles here. Sprinkles. And not that you can't get serious about your sprinkles. Like everyone has a flavor that they love, but the reality is you can't hold it too tight where you choke it out.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I would get frustrated or I'd feel as if I was being passed over when the money plate came around to folks, because I have friends who are like multimillionaires, friends who are doctors and lawyers and like RNs, and I'm out here, on this entrepreneurial journey. And I just know that like what's for me is for me. And my best days are still ahead of me. But the ones I've had up until now have been pretty damn good too.
I
And
love it.
so that helps me still to this day, right? Because in my head, I'm just like, yo, I'm going for like to be a decamillionaire, right? I want to
Right.
be. I'm My wealth goals are so grand, to be honest, and it's a muscle that's grown over time.
I love it.
But I still have work to do. Like my kids are retired, but not their kids.
I think it's wonderful. And there's probably a scale of women listening today, many and probably the majority who have created financial success, but again, feel like they're in a prison. Many that may have created financial success and lost it or burned it down because it wasn't fulfilling, right? They lost it maybe through divorce or maybe through whatever, or they burned it down intentionally. So if you could whisper a word of wisdom into that woman's ear, maybe based on some of your journey, what would that last piece of wisdom be?
You're good enough to take care of yourself, and
Hmm.
it doesn't have to all be on you. Like your money wants to partner with you. And your money's been there since the day you were born, and it's going to be with you all the way through. You need to bring some intentionality to it, and you need to get more personal with it. Like it actually wants to know you. And
Yeah.
so you might be silently repelling something that really just wants to love up on you so much. And even if you have someone handling it, it's still your money. It's like putting your kid away somewhere and trusting someone else to raise them and hoping that they end up being the exact person that you wanted them to be. There's a good chance it's not going to end up that way. Like
Yeah.
you have to be there with it, and it is a very beautiful relationship. So if you feel kind of down, if you have regret around money, it's okay. It's a part of the human experience, and it's going to human with you, but it's yours. Your
Hmm.
money is your money. It is no one else's money. Just like how your life is your money is your money. And you
Yeah.
get to have a very unique, special relationship with it. And it's worth it.
I got you. Do money your way. I like marketing and slogans.
Yeah, I love that too. That's cute. I
Do
love
money your way, baby. I love it. So, with that said, I'm sure that many of our viewers have fallen in love with you today, as have I again. And so, where can they connect with you? Where do you hang out? Website, social media?
it.
Where's the best
Yeah.
place?
And so I always love to leave people with a guide. If you go to happyinvestorguide.com, it's a guide. I have it in two ways. So there's an audio format because if you're listening, odds are you like audio. But it's also just something to kind of get your mind right around up leveling your wealth. And so if you go to Happy Investor Guide and just hit reply like, "Hey, I saw you on this podcast," like so
Yeah.
that I can reply back and actually see how you've been and give you some accountability. But let's stay in touch. You can also find me at Happy Investor Method on Instagram. We play there a lot, but really the jewels are in the inbox. I already told y'all how I feel about social. So
Yes.
I already
Yes.
told you.
I love it. Well, we appreciate that. It's a very generous offer there to get the guide because I think what happens for me, I'll speak for myself, because I'm high achieving a woman myself. I like to consume. I like to consume information. I want to be on every webinar and get every guide and all of that. But I do feel like when you download the guides or the reports or things like that, it's a true insight, and for me, because I'm a feeler, I'm an embodied person, it, you know, right away, like, yes, I want more. So it
Mhm.
creates that hunger, right? Not only does it give you some next steps, but it creates that hunger. So definitely go get your guide. I'm sure it's extremely valuable. And I just want to thank you so much that we finally made this happen and that I get to share you with my audience. And we'll look forward to following your journey and watching you and being alongside you on the Deca Millionaire journey, right?
Yes, I don't believe in mountaintops. I only believe in fields.
Yes, I
And
love
so we're
that.
all on the field. And thank you so much for having me. Y'all
Yeah,
make sure to share this episode. It's a really good one. And there's so many women not having this conversation right now that need to.
100%. So, thank you all for joining us today on another episode of Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. If you want more of this juiciness, follow us on Instagram, Patrina Wisdom and Living Room Wisdom Podcast. And if you want to go even deeper, I would really love for you to jump into our Sovereign CEO Collective. Notes are in the show notes. The link is in the show notes. And if you want to be surrounded by incredible women like this and be poured into, then it's the place for you. So until next week, we'll see you and have a wonderful day. Make it a great day.